This will be a presentation of the War of 1812. People who were involved in the war were Napoleon Bonaparte, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, William Henry Ford, and Andrew Jackson. What happened in the war is that for 2.5 years, Americans fought against the British, Canadian colonists, and native nations. This war apparently divided the United States so deeply that the nation almost broke apart. Americans immediately attacked Canada, which also led to another British colony. On August 16, 1812, the United States suffered a humiliating defeat after Brock and Tecumseh's forces chased those led by Michigan William Hull across the Canadian border, scaring Hull into surrendering Detroit without any shots fired. There was also the Battle of Lake Erie in September 1813, which is somewhere around here. Harrison was subsequently able to retake Detroit with the victory of the Battle of Thames, which is around here. The U.S. Navy has been able to score several victories over the Royal Navy in the early months of war, which allowed them to retake a couple of places around the border. British forces tried to raid the Chesapeake Bay, right around here, and they moved into the U.S. capital, capturing Washington, D.C. on August 24, 1814, and burning government buildings, including the Capitol and the White House. It was right around there. Additionally, on September 13, 1814, Baltimore's Fort McHenry, which is around there, withstood 25 hours of bombardment by the British Navy. Congress ultimately voted for war before the war even started. Both House and Senate were both kind of divided on the issue. The parts of how the war started were that the war hawks in Congress were putting more and more pressure on Madison, and on June 18, 1812, the president signed a declaration of war against Britain. American officials were overly optimistic about the invasion's success, sometimes in different areas, but especially given how unprepared U.S. troops were at the time, some areas were lost. Some places that the war took place at are Canada, Washington, D.C., Chesapeake Bay, Lake Erie, and modern Ontario, somewhere in the beginning of the war. The Big War of 1812 took place in 1807, 1809, 1810, 1811, and, of course, 1812. Some reasons why the war happened is because Napoleon Bonaparte, who was sort of an unfair leader somewhere in France, he wasn't very good about his laws. There were also some restrictions on American and British trade, so they were kind of restricted on their trades. President Madison was pressured in war because of the so-called war hawks. There was different or unfair laws from Napoleon Bonaparte. There was some unfair leadership. Some neutral countries were starting to need licenses to trade with Britain or France. The Royal Navy changing seamen's purposes or ideals, which meant that they changed what they were supposed to do. There were some new members of Congress who agitated the war in America, and there was some Native American hostility around there, and there was some overpowering each other's countries, some in different areas. And that's pretty much it. So this presentation is now over. Go America.